One of the biggest issues with Battlefield 1 that managed to hide throughout the past 2 years of its life is the hated and dreadful visual recoil. To be frank, I don't know why this issue has never gotten the attention it deserved. Keep in mind that visual recoil is not exclusive to Battlefield 1, and we've already encountered and tackled this problem in previous games. I'm also thankful to say that this issue is all but gone in Battlefield 5. But the issue is still very real within Battlefield 1 and can affect your play more than you think. Before we go any further, it's important to understand what exactly visual recoil is. If you don't know already from the self-explanatory name, in short, visual recoil is recoil you perceive that does not actually represent where your point of aim is. I'll throw up some clips on the screen to better show what I mean. If you're looking closely, I put a small green dot in the middle of the screen. This green dot is perfectly aligned to the middle of the screen and is the same size as the current red dot in Battlefield 1 Vanilla. This also represents where your aim actually is in Battlefield 1. Wherever this green dot is where your bullets will go, assuming that we're in a no-spread environment, of course. Now you can see when I'm strafing from left to right, firing my weapon or adjusting my aim, the red reticle on the screen, which should represent my point of aim, is not aligned with the green dot. If you do some frame-by-frame analysis, you can really see how much the optic deviates from the point of aim, and in the case of optical weapons, this deviation is very severe. Visual recoil is very bad for a game, for two reasons. One, the game is basically lying to the player. It's showing your point of aim in a location where it is not present. And two, it can screw with the player's ability to aim and thus make them miss shots that would have hit if it weren't for the existence of visual recoil, which can then lead to some players to adopt a twisted way of thinking and assumption of the gunplay in-game. Like I said earlier, this heavily impacts the use and viability of weapons within Battlefield 1. Keep in mind that visual recoil exists on every weapon, whatever optic they have, or lack thereof. However, it differs a bit from optic to optic. But one variant this affects the most is the optical weapon variants. These variants are probably the worst to use within the game just due to how much visual recoil these optics have. Take a weapon like the RSC, a rifle that relies solely on the user landing accurate shots back to back. For the optical variant, the difficulty for the player to land these shots are extremely high. Not due to the player's skill, but because the game is essentially lying to the player where the point of aim actually is. If we're going by stats, optical SLRs are much more advantageous than marksman variants, but due to the amount of visual recoil optical weapons have in comparison to their marksman brothers, makes them the inferior choice. Visual recoil can also influence players into believing their weapon is not as accurate as it should be. In short, their bullets are not going where they are aiming. The major cause of this complaint is the misuse of weapons, which results in more spread, but also for visual recoil as well, as sometimes your optic will completely travel outside of your spread cone. You may wonder that when you aim to line up a shot or follow-up shots that seem to be perfectly on target, yet they miss. Depending on the situation, this is because the game is lying to you. Your reticle is not where your point of aim is. The frustrating thing about this is that the player has no means of countering such a problem within the game. Unlike spread increase, the player, no matter what playstyle they adopt, cannot avoid visual recoil. The only way to combat such an issue is to install a crosshair overlay, which will always show your true point of aim. Frankly, a player should not have to rely on external means to accurately aim within their game. The game should be telling the player where their aim is, not some random program that they downloaded. So by now, I'm sure you understand the severity of this issue and why visual recoil is extremely bad not just for Battlefield, but for any game. With Battlefield 1 basically on its last legs in terms of support, I'm afraid that this issue will never get fixed. It's upsetting that the community nor DICE gave this issue more attention in hopes of getting it fixed, while much less pressing matters were being addressed while visual recoil was just swept under the rug. If anyone remembers back to Battlefield 4, the game had horrendous visual recoil, with varying differences between your choice of optics. It wasn't until the CTE came around for Battlefield 4 and the DICE LA team pretty much eradicated the issue. It's sad that Battlefield 1 will most likely never receive the same treatment. Anyways, if you have any opinions on this, let me know by leaving a comment down below. And as always, it's been BloodHound, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.